Are Humans Naturally Evil? A slideshow by Daniel Regel, myself, based on the novel Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Surfacing human instincts. So before we can talk about the question, which is if humans are naturally evil, we have to talk about human instincts. Well, an instinct is an innate, typically fixed pattern of behavior in animals in response to certain stimuli. So, based on the environment, an animal is programmed to act in a certain way. So, humans are animals, of course, we're going to have instincts. So, one of those could be fear. Fear was first used by us to protect against maybe a predator or maybe a dangerous situation. We would feel fear, either we would retract or we would try to fight this cause of the fear. Fear is also based in pre-existing knowledge. So, for example, if I experience something now, I might be better well prepared to face it the next time I experience it. With that, we can talk about selfishness. So, selfishness originated from the greed, the need to acquire, to stock food during difficult times. So, if you want to stock food, you want to survive. If you want to survive, you're not necessarily caring if your friend is going to survive or if your partner is going to survive. Partner, in which I mean the same species. So you would do things for your own benefit, originating selfishness. So this sense of selfishness then later originated tribal loyalty. So you have this group you're part of, you identify with this group, and you're selfish towards other groups. So you're going to do everything you can for your group to thrive, even if these measures mean doing harm to other groups. So before we talk about evil and if humans are programmed to be evil naturally, we have to define the word first. So according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, evil is an act that is morally reprehensible, sinful, wicked, and arising from actual or imputed bad character or conduct. It also says that it could cause discomfort or repulsion, causing harm, marked by misfortune, ta-da-da, ta-da-da. So basically, summarizing, evil is something you do that isn't considered right by society and that usually harms something or someone. So you do it, harm something. See, some acts that in society we have these traits that are considered evil include prejudice, which can include stereotypes, racism, all that. Aggressiveness, which is a trait that originates from fear. So, as I talked before, you might fight something you don't know, something you're afraid of. You might act against it with physical violence. Accentuated social classes, so social differences mainly originated way many time ago by greed. So greedy people that had access to the most materials, the most food, they were able to develop and continue exploiting the peoples that did not have these certain goods. So the people that didn't have these certain goods, they weren't able to develop as much as the people that had. This all originated from selfishness. Nationalism, which originated from tribal loyalty that was discussed previously. Nationalism is one, if not the main causer of wars throughout the history, throughout the modern world. So in nationalism, you believe that your group is better, your tribe is better, and you're going to do everything to protect your tribe or to make your tribe thrive over the others. However, as important as they might seem, human instincts aren't all that make us who we are. Socialization is a great way to differentiate us from animals. Socialization occurs, the primary one occurs usually in the early years of life. You might say 0 to 4 years old. Some people say 0 to 6 years old. The fact is that you end up learning not by solely instincts, but by observing the others around you. You learn by observation. So you might acquire traits such as the ability to speak in a certain language, the ability to do certain function, all by observing other people do it around you instead of just being genetically programmed to do so. For example, my 30-year-old cousin, he is learning currently how the world works, how to react, how to behave, all by observing his parents do it, his friends do it, and so on and so forth. However, if a person doesn't get the chance to experience the early socialization, the person might not be able to develop these characteristics just because he or she wasn't exposed to them to begin with when they were very young. So for example, Victor of Aveyron, this is an interesting case to socialization, since this is a boy that was found in the nature living alone, and he was found as a preteen. So since he is theorized to be living alone for almost, let's say, 11 years, 12 years, he didn't really get in contact with any other human beings apart from himself. And so he didn't learn by socialization. He didn't learn how to behave, how to react, and he never could learn as much as specialists tried to teach him how to behave, what to do, never was able to adapt to our modern society. Talking about the book's author, the book that we're talking about is Lord of the Flies, talking about its author, William Golding. He was born in Newquay, England, and although not being very wealthy, he had a good education opportunity since his father was a teacher at a local school. Then he went to study in a very good college and became a school teacher himself. However, the Second World War began, and with that, William had to enlist in the Royal Navy to fight in the war for his country. Again, talking about nationalism. So, in the war, William experienced traumatic events. He experienced atrocities, killings, massive killings. And this image of war, this image of death, never really could leave William's mind after he had seen it once. And so William, from that part on of his life, he became a very pessimistic person. This became more and more apparent when he began writing books. So his first novel published was Lord of the Flies in 1954. And in Lord of the Flies and his later books, we can observe characteristics such as exploring the fragility of the human social conduct, socialization, the corruption of humankind, evil in human nature, and overall, he was a very down guy. He barely had faith in the future, and he thought humanity was lost and evil was to rise. So going into his one of, if not his greatest work and his first work, Lord of the Flies. This is an important novel in marking William Golding's opinion on the topic and overall in human nature. So the novel starts with a plane crash and on an island. So this plane is filled with boys ranging from 6 to 12-year-olds, so let's say toddlers to preteens, and most of them don't know each other. Only a small group of choir boys, they know each other because they're wearing the same uniform, and apparently they have been together in the life before the island. And this helps them unite in a group. So there's the group of the choir guys, and there's the group that later assembles, which is the rest. So the rest is composed by Ralph, which is sort of the leader figure in this situation. And Ralph first begins being this leader after he finds a conch on the floor. And so he blows on this conch, calls the attention of the other boys, and gathers them. This is their first reunion, the first meeting. And from that point on, Ralph declares that they are a tribe now and that they have to cooperate in order to survive in this hostile environment. And the first measure Ralph takes is he tells everybody, go out and explore the island, then come back with what you have found. And something that calls the majority of the boys' attention and the place where they go exploring first is this mountain, this very tall mountain on a side of the island. And so they go there and they build this sort of smokehouse, fire, campfire, something that produces fire. And so this fire was an idea of Ralph, and its purpose is to signal passing boats, passing planes, that there are lost kids in the island. And so if the boat passes and sees the smoke signal, they're going to go and rescue them. So this was the main idea. However, not everyone agrees with that. We're going to see it later that there's a group that rebels against Ralph and just straight up goes on savage mode. Another interesting aspect that begins happening in the island and with the boys is this sort of fear, this fear for this beast creature. So some kids begin, especially the toddlers, begin having these nightly visions of this beast that sometimes appears from the ocean, sometimes may come from the sky, and even come from the forest. And this beast is something that they fear, that they do not understand. And as the story goes on, the fear of the beast becomes bigger, bigger, and more present in the life of the boys in the island. So after the main reunion, the first few days, two groups begin to be more and more divided, which are the fire people and the hunters. So the fire peoples are led by Ralph, and they believe that they have to focus on the fire, putting wood on the fire so the fire never stops, and they have a bigger chance of surviving, since they have a bigger chance of someone finding them and rescuing them. They are more to the rational side, the more realistic thought, and they are very cooperative. However, the other group, the hunters, are also very cooperative. They're led by Jack, one of the choir boys. And the hunters, their morality is to hunt. So they have to hunt to eat the pig to survive. And this group is much more based on instincts and has a special relationship with the beast. So this fear of the beast is present there. But it's like a fear of God. So you fear God, but you have an admiration for the God. You cult God. And you cult God, so God doesn't do anything bad to you. So this is the relation they had with the beast. They culted it so the beast wouldn't kill them. Very driven by imaginative belief. So this ritual begins happening amongst the hunter group. So every time they go hunting, they begin chanting this chant. Kill the pig, cut her throat, spill her blood. Kill the pig, cut her throat, bash her in. So they sing it, and as the story goes on, the chant becomes more and more intense. And so does this image of the beast and this need to survive, to hunt, to eat meat, to impose one's strength over an inferior animal, in this case, a pig. So the group not only sings this chant while hunting, but also while reenacting a scene of hunt. So they use a boy to be the pig, and they pretend they're hunting him. And while they do that, they sing the same chant. However, things get very intense and out of control when Simon, one of the most introverted boys in the group, he has this vision in the forest. So Simon's always by himself. He even has a little haven in the woods where he spends most of the day in. And one time when he's coming back from his haven back to the main area, he has this vision of this creature, this thing. And he has a sudden realization that what is driving everyone crazy is something internal, something inside of them. And he goes running towards the beach where they're having one of those reenactions of the pig hunting. And he's going to warn them of what is to come if they do not fix what's wrong with their thought, their imagination. And as Simon goes towards the beach running, the group that is reenacting the scene, they get caught by surprise by Simon, because Simon's running and screaming. He's like, oh, hear me, hear me. And while they are singing this ritual, they end up getting confused, and they see Simon as being the beast. And so they all gather around Simon and begin stabbing him with spears, beating him up, and they do so while singing the following chant: kill the beast, cut his throat, spill her blood, do him in. And they actually do him in the end. They actually end up killing Simon, and his body is washed to the sea by the waves later on. This chant, it got so intense, it got out of control, and it is very, very, very related to the relationship of the boys and the beast. So it symbolizes the pinnacle of the boys' corruption and loss of civilized thought, because when the chant reaches its climax is when the boys get out of control and end up killing one of them. And this idea of beast cult, the intensity of the chant, represents the loss of sanity. This image being showcased in the slideshow right now is what is represented in the novel as The Lord of the Flies. It's where the novel gets its title from. So The Lord of the Flies is the vision Simon has in the woods before running outside to warn the boys and end up dying. So this vision he has is sort of a warning of what is to come. Simon is the only one that understood the message. So he ends up finding this sore head stuck in a stick that the hunters left in the woods for a beast offering, as an offering for the beast, so the beast wouldn't kill them. And Simon just stares at the empty eyes of the pig, and he just thinks about everything. And so the head begins talking to Simon, and the head talks about how evil is to come and how everyone is going to fade, everyone's conscience is going to fade into existence, and they're going to end up just being wild, savage, evil, and killing each other. And Simon is afraid. Simon knows that the situation is getting worse and worse every day. And this beast, this symbol, represents the call to the wild, for example. It represents evil trying to lurk out of the boy's soul and manifest itself in actions such as killing the pig, to killing members of the group and burning the whole island, which is the last action taken by the boys before the novel ends. So the final statement, the final conclusion after analyzing the novel, after analyzing William Golding's life, is that the author himself believes in humans being naturally evil. He believes that because, as we've seen through his biography, he's a very pessimistic person. He's seen humans in their most evil state, a state in which they can kill their equals just for the sake of a country, of a nation. They're able to torture one another. Golding has seen that, felt on his own skin. And so he wrote this novel to express how he saw humanity. What he had seen in the war, he manifested all on the form of innocent boys that get trapped in this island and slowly corrupt themselves and turn evil in the end. The boys found their true evil by meeting nature, by living on this island, having nothing, nowhere else to go. And in the end, the final statement is up to the reader's beliefs and interpretation of the events in the novel. So, after all, you might have a different conclusion from the author. How your conclusion might be right, your conclusion might be wrong. We will never know, because as all pieces of art are, they can be up to your own interpretation. Of course, there's the interpretation of the author taken into account, but your interpretation is also very important, because that's how you perceive the novel, the story, whatever art piece you're looking into. I'm gonna finish off this presentation with a quote by Golding himself. This quote kind of summarizes what his thoughts are on humanity and the nature of evil in our society. Man produces evil as a bee produces honey. These are some useful links I've used in my research. Thank you so much for watching this presentation. If you enjoyed, leave a like, please comment, and I'm very, very grateful that you were able to spend like this time of your life just appreciating this video. It would be very great if you could send any feedback, if you could write a nice comment, or even a comment suggesting anything. I would be very grateful. Thank you very much. And this was my project. Goodbye.